Hey, Al.
Hey, Barry.
Why does the Astrarian Embassy throw such great parties?
Why?
It's lit. It's time for Compelled Duel. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Compelled Duel. I'm Barry.
And I'm Al.
And we are a single-player, co-DM'd D&D 5e actual play podcast.
Previously on Compelled Duel.
Inside this envelope, on the letterhead of the Astrarian Embassy, is an invitation to a party tomorrow night addressed to you specifically.
So this definitely smells like a trap, right? Obviously we're not going to this.
I don't think you can afford not to. I think I found out what your father's planning. I need backup from one of you. Phirora, I could use some thunder on my side. You need to get the fuck out of there. Whoever you're with, it's not Boreas.
Who are you?
What you should be asking, darling, is how fast you can run. I don't think you're gonna make it there in time.
You open this door, and the first thing you see is Ambassador Eamon Petrus lying dead on the floor.
What happened here? Sabine nods over towards this stage and the bard that is playing, and you are able to gather that she is trying to tell you, hey, this person up there is a beacon operative. You're both too late.
Shoot off a sending to somebody that's back at the house now. Run.
What about...
We'll come back. Run!
Wait. Where's my mom? And the Astrarian Embassy erupts into a massive, unsurvivable ball of fire. Phi, roll me a dexterity saving throw, please.
Oh, good, great. Natural 1.
Way to start off the session. Would you like to use a reroll?
Indeed, I would. That one was a natural 17, which is a dirty 20.
Okay, let me roll for Leo. 11. So, Phi, there is a split second where you watch the Astrarian Embassy just explode in this massive ball of fire, and then the concussive force of this explosion hits you like a freight train. You are blasted backwards. I think you do hit the ground on your back hard. It sends a scream of pain out through your Lichtenberg scarring down your back. But with that dirty 20 dex save, you manage to tuck and roll backwards and land on your feet. Next to you, Leo fully eats shit. He is on the ground prone. And let me roll for Kalessa as well. 23, she's up. Your vision goes bright white and orange for a second as the onslaught of the light from this explosion hits you. And for a few seconds, there is nothing you can hear other than this high whine of tinnitus in your ears. Your vision comes back before your hearing does, so you are just in this mute world, looking around, watching incinerated bodies of the people that were closest to the explosion littering the lawn. There is not much left of the Astrarian Embassy. Most of the walls have been fully blown out, knocked to the ground, and what is left of the place is just an inferno. Instinctively, you know that nobody that was inside that building could have survived that. And as soon as you realize that, what brings your hearing back pierces through this muted fog in your ears is Kalessa letting out the most grief-stricken scream you have ever heard a living creature produce. A few feet away from you, she collapses to her knees, eyes wide, reflecting the flickering flames in front of them. This scream dies on her lips, and she stares numbly in front of her for a couple seconds before going, "Mom! Mom!" And she scrambles to her feet and takes off running towards the burning embassy. So I'm gonna roll a grapple check real quick. Oof, okay, just barely. Kalessa takes off running, and then you see a small green and brown blur from next to you as Eleonora just has to football tackle her to the ground to keep her from running into this burning building. They both hit the ground and roll a couple times, and then Kalessa just dissolves into sobs. What are you doing?
Phi's gonna get up. I'll roll a con check or a con save or whatever to see how I'm doing, but...
Yeah, just roll me a Constitution saving throw.
11.
Okay, anything under a 10, you would have taken some damage. With an 11, you hurt, but not enough to lose any hit points.
If I remember correctly from last session, I was standing next to Leo and the captain, so I would like to make sure that they're both okay. Really quick.
Leo is flat on the ground on his back. He looks like he's had the wind knocked out of him, but he's conscious. The captain also made that deck save, so he's up. You see him a few feet off to the side, helping Sabine and Ereve to their feet, kind of stumbling. It looks like he's got vertigo from whatever ringing is in his ears.
Everybody except Kalessa's mom get out, right?
Yeah, you do a quick head count, and you see that everybody in your party is alive in various states of disorientation and distress, but alive.
Okay, then Phi's going over to Kalessa.
Kalessa is just inconsolable. She is on the ground, heaving these big, body-shaking sobs. Every few seconds, she tries to lunge out of this grapple again, fingers clawing at the ground, trying to get back into this building. And as you get over there, you see Eleonora heave her up against her shoulder and just kind of hold her there by the back of her head. You cannot go in there, alright? I'm not losing you too.
Phi's gonna look at Eleonora and say, "We need to get out of here. Now."
Eleonora looks around, panicked, from the burning embassy to the bodies laying directly in front of it to the absolute screaming pandemonium that is starting to rocket out through this yard. And then you see this change come over her face where it shifts from panic to calm analysis. Her jaw clenches and she nods at you. Yeah, I think that's the best course of action. You get everybody else, I've got her.
Okay. First of all, Phi's gonna run back over to Leo and the captain.
Leo is still on the ground wheezing, but is kind of slowly pushing himself up on his elbows to sit up. Where is everybody?
Everybody's here. We need to leave.
We need to go back to that alley and find that woman from the beacon before she wakes up and runs off. She's the only evidence in all of this that we have.
Shit. Alright, you're right. And then Phi's gonna attempt to tug him to his feet with her shoulders just screaming.
Yeah, Leo doesn't weigh a lot. You get him up without much issue. He zaps Kimmerl's blade into his hand and casts thaumaturgy to make his voice loud, hearable over the din of everything happening right now, and shouts, "All right, Phi, Zed, Captain Sabine, you're with me. Everybody else back to the rendezvous point. We'll meet you there."
As he's doing that, Phi is not gonna wait because they don't have the time. She's just gonna take off.
You take off back through these alleys. Eventually, Leo is able to double dash enough to catch up with you. You see the knife flash at his side again as he casts Locate Creature, and kind of visibly relaxes. Okay, she's still down where we left her. You all make it to the end of this alley where Leo knocked the bard that escaped from the party out several minutes ago. You see her still curled up on the cobblestones, but as you start to make your way down this alley, you notice that she is starting to stir, limbs kind of twitching and hands pressing against the stones, trying to push herself up.
I'm going to use Channel Divinity Nature's Wrath.
Okie dokie, remind me what that does?
It says you can use your Channel Divinity to invoke primeval forces to ensnare a foe. As an action, you can cause spectral vines, but I'm going to reflavor it to be an electric cage. To spring up and reach for a creature within 10 feet of you that you can see, the creature must succeed on a strength or dexterity saving throw of its choice, or be restrained, and while restrained by the vines, in this case by electricity, however you want to flavor that, the creature repeats the saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a success, it frees itself and the vines vanish. So that's a strength or dexterity saving throw against my spell save DC, which is an 18.
Okay, she's gonna choose to roll dexterity, because that's what she's best at. That was a 17. Just barely, but doesn't do it.
So this bard is restrained by glowing crackles of electricity.
Everybody else in your party draws up behind you, and you see Leo's knife flash again as he throws up an anti-life shell at the other end of the alley, so that even if she gets out of this lightning cage, she can't make it out of the alley. The captain runs up on the other side of this lightning cage and levels his cutlass at the throat of this young Astrarian lady that is kind of struggling to get up. I wouldn't do that if I were you, lass. And then Sabine comes around the side of this crackling electric cage and crouches down next to her. You see this bard's eyes go wide as she realizes who she's looking at, and she gasps out, "Truth dies in darkness!" Sabine straightens up with this bitter little smirk. Revelation lives in light, and you picked the wrong people to fuck with. She stomps her feet in quick succession, and you hear this odd effect come over her voice as she casts dissonant whispers and says, "Nighty-night." Even if this bard could have passed the whiz save on the spell, Sabine has cast it at such a high level that she's unconscious again.
Phi looks down at this unconscious bard, does a kind of twisting hand gesture to dispel these lightning restraints, and then looks over at Zed and says, "Do you mind?"
Zed, looking more than a little rattled from everything you've just been through, kind of just blinks at you and goes, yeah, you got it. And just kind of fireman carries this unconscious bard out of the alleyway. Where are you headed?
Back to the embassy to make sure everybody else in our party got away, and then to the garage.
By the time you get back to the embassy, it is a mess. People are spilling out into the street, screaming, crying, panicking. You see the sirens of several emergency vehicles approaching, and in the middle of it all, kind of left alone with the burnt corpses in this yard, you see Kalessa still just collapsed, crying, and Eleonora rubbing her shoulders.
Phi's gonna turn to the group at large and say, "Alright, does anyone have a way of getting us back to the garage quickly and quietly?"
Sabine reaches down to tighten one of the buckles of her bells around her wrist. "Yeah, follow me." And she charges across the yard to where Kalessa and Eleonora are still huddled.
Okay, Phi's gonna follow her.
You all close in around them in a tight huddle. Kalessa is, at this point, just weak and shaking and crying. Sabine reaches up, does a complicated gesture with her arms, her bells jingle, and she casts one of her new spells, which is Teleport. So all of you are headed to a location that is very familiar to her. I do, however, still have to roll on a table to make sure that nothing horrible happens to all of you. And that was a 29, which means you all end up on target. Phi, there is that familiar, nauseous feeling of teleportation magic that you remember from your incident back in Astraria. One moment you are standing in the muted glow of the burning embassy, and the next, there is a loud pop, and you are standing in the middle of the Tony's garage. The rest of your party does not appear to be back yet, but the door from the front room opens with a clatter, and a second later, you see Florian Javaris walk in, big floppy hat askew on his head, like half of a charcuterie board perched in his hand. He's halfway through munching on a piece of salami when he looks up at all of you and goes, how did it go? Oh. Uh-oh.
Leo. As you all get your bearings after this teleportation spell, Zed quickly and efficiently ties this still unconscious bard to a chair. You watch Phi just immediately go to sit down. She's kind of rubbing at her shoulders and the back of her neck like they hurt a lot. After a few minutes, the rest of your party file in. You watch Florian immediately go over to Ereve and trying to brush ash out of her hair and just generally fussing over her. Kalessa is catatonic. She does not say a word as all of this is going on. Eleonora kind of ushered her into a chair as you were all getting your bearings back, and she is just staring off into the middle distance.
Is everybody else back? So, Ravane, Verity, Talindra, Fen, Mia?
Yeah, they all got back when Ereve did. Mia has been pacing the length of the garage, bristling like a scalded cat. Ravane needed to stop and take a minute outside before he came in, and Talindra sat with him while he did that. But everybody's back, yeah.
Leo is struggling to be the most okay person in this room right now, and kind of picks up an opposite pattern of pacing to Mia. Alright, we need to get her in the back room. When she wakes up, I'll Zone of Truth her.
Various people in your party start moving towards this bard tied to this chair, and then Mia makes a disgusted noise and actually, shoulder checks Zed and walks over to this chair, upper lip curled. Move. And they just drag this bard. This is not a small woman on this chair, and Mia is a very small person, but one-handed, they drag the bard into the back room.
I'm gonna follow them in there, and then check to make sure her ropes are secure. And then I'm gonna use my last 2 first-level spell slots to cast a couple Cure Wounds to get her up to 25 hit points, before readying an action to cast Zone of Truth when she wakes up.
You can hear the rest of your party trying to comfort each other back in the main part of the garage, and you sit here alone with this unconscious bard. Eventually, she begins to stir.
Okay, cool. As soon as this happens, the Zone of Truth is active.
Okay, I'm gonna roll this bard a whiz save. Natural 1. It's a 2.
And my spell save DC is 18, so that's not gonna do it. Leo pulls another chair over in front of this woman and spins it around so it's backwards, and then kind of straddles it, perching his arms on the back and his chin on top of his arms. Hi there. Welcome back to consciousness. I'm Leo. What's your name?
You watch this woman, much like your father did the last time that you cast Zone of Truth, open her mouth to lie. You watch it catch behind her teeth, and then she chokes out, Esta.
Well, Esta, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you've landed yourself in a whole world of trouble, and you strike me as a smart woman. I'd like to help you out. All you have to do is answer a few questions for me.
Esta tilts her head and gives you this sharp, mirthless smile, and then she's gonna spit in your face.
Leo reaches up and wipes off his cheek with a sharp flick of his hand. And then he's gonna zap Kimrel's blade into his free hand and cast Thaumaturgy. One of the effects of that spell is that I can alter the appearance of my eyes for the next minute. I would like to make them glow with that silvery gray necrotic energy that I cast most of my magic with. And then lean in very close to her, bracing one hand on the back of her chair. I'm gonna be real frank with you, babe. I'm the one you want to play nice with. Because there are people out there that are ready to be way meaner to you than I'm inclined to be. I get it, you're scared, you're lashing out. So I'm gonna give you one last chance, Esta. Who sent you? For what purpose? And just how much did you know about your mission?
I'm gonna be real frank with you, Leo. You can make me tell the truth, but you can't make me talk.
Don't make me push this to where we both know it's going. Neither of us want that.
You can push it anywhere you like, sweetheart. You don't scare me. And you won't get what you want.
Leo stands up from his chair and goes over to lean in the doorway. See, that's the funny thing about a Zone of Truth spell. Anybody under its effects can only speak what they really believe to be the truth. So I believe that I don't scare you. And I'm about to send in somebody that definitely will. But as far as me not getting what I want, well, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt you don't know me. I always get what I want. You'll find that out soon enough. Until then, I'll let you sweat it out. And then Leo's gonna turn around and walk back out into the garage. He nods back out towards the party at large and kind of cocks his hip and leans in the doorway. Alright, Sabine, I need you to go in there and be way more mean and scary than I am. We've got about 5 minutes left on that Zone of Truth.
Sabine raises her eyebrows, pulls a knife out of the folds of her skirts, and then she looks sideways at where Kalessa is still just hunched in a chair, and says, "Can do."
Watch out for wayward bodily fluids. This one's a spitter.
Gross. But then Sabine walks past you into the back room. While she's doing that, what are you doing?
Leo's gonna head over to wherever Kalessa is and just sit down next to her and put out a hand in case she wants to take it.
Kalessa reaches out and takes your hand and just squeezes it super hard. Like, you can feel your bones creak with how hard she's squeezing your hand. You sit there in silence for several minutes. And then Sabine walks out of the back room, slams the door behind her, and just reaches up to scrub both hands down her face. Well, that was pointless. I got nothing.
The Zone of Truth was still active. She didn't talk? She didn't say anything?
Not a word. And then Sabine reaches up, undoes her braid crown and then her braid so she can redo it, and comes over to sit down next to Phi. Next to you, Kalessa impossibly tightens her grip on your hand, and then stands up and says, "Let me in there."
No, that's a bad idea. The Zone of Truth is dead at this point. There's nothing you can do.
Kalessa wraps her arms around herself for a second and just laughs bitterly. I spent how many decades at the Order of Elena? There are a lot of things I can think to do right now.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking of doing, and I'm telling you that you're not coming at this with a clear head, Kalessa.
Oh, fuck a clear head. You're gonna look me in the face and tell me that if you could have made your father answer for what he did to your mother, you wouldn't have done it?
No. Not like this.
Kalessa laughs incredulously. You are such a fucking liar. Enjoy your moral high ground, Leo. If you need me, I'll be getting us some fucking results. And then she storms into the back room.
Leo takes a couple steps after her, hand outstretched, but then just stops and clenches his fist. Shit.
Eleonora is going past you and going for the door as Kalessa slams it behind her. There's a pause, and then you see Eleonora grab the doorknob, try to turn it. It jiggles. She tries to turn it again, and it jiggles again. We got a problem, everyone.
Yeah, I know, Kalessa. I'm gonna use my last second-level spell slot to cast Detect Magic on the door.
You see a shimmering blue aura of abjuration magic around this door.
Fuck, she hit it with an arcane lock. Anybody got a knock spell?
Ravane from behind you says, I have it, but I don't have it prepared. Give me a minute.
We don't have a minute!
From inside the back room, you hear this noise, like something viscous splattering across the floor. And then you hear Esta the Bard say, "What the hell is this?" As Eleonora tries the door handle again, you hear Kalessa say, "Oh, this? It's a grace spell. You don't want to find out what I'm going to cast after it. Want to tell me who sent you?" You hear Esther return. What are you going to do with a grease spell? That can't kill me. Phi, who has drawn up next to you, looks over her shoulder and says, "Fen, get over here." And then you hear Kalessa say, "Yeah, I know. But the fun thing is that I can turn a create bonfire spell on..." And because Esta is restrained, she has disadvantage on this dex save. The high roll was an 18, wish that mattered. The lower one was an 8, which with her +9 does not beat Kalessa's spell save DC of 18. So I'm gonna roll 3d8 fire damage. 15! There is a crackling of flame, and then you hear a horrible, agonized shriek. And there is this smell of roasting meat and burning hair. And then... and off. As many times as I want. And as Fen approaches and adjusts his stance, like he's about to, bull rush this door, Kalessa continues, "And don't worry if we overcook you a little bit. My friend out there's a cleric. We can keep doing this for as long as it takes."
Leo's eyes go wide and panicked as he gags on this noxious smell. Fen, you better put those rippling muscles to good use.
Fen says, "Yeah, move out of the way." And as you and Eleonora back up, Fen is going to make a strength check to try to bust the door down. That was an 11. He gets a +5. That's 16. With an arcane lock, the DC to bust a locked door down, believe it or not, is 35. Adra, still across the room, sounding shaken, says,
We're gonna need a fire extinguisher. Someone go get Tony."
Lark, from next to her, says, "Which one?"
"Any of them."
And Lark bolts.
Leo's gonna shove Fen out of the way of the door and just try to yell through the keyhole. Kalessa, you don't want to do this!
Kalessa does not acknowledge that you said that. You hear Esta laugh humorlessly and go, "There's nothing you can do to me that's worse than..." And as she's saying that, you hear, and more noises of fire crackling and another shriek. So I'm going to do another disadvantaged dex save. That's a 3, plus 9 is a 12, not gonna do it, 3d8 damage. Ooh, okay, that's, 9. Okay, cool. And Kalessa says, "Names! Now!" And then Phi backs up a couple steps and cracks her knuckles and says, "Okay, everybody out of the way."
Leo's not moving. He turns around, back braced against the door. If you try to cast a shatter right now, they are both right on the other side of that door. You could hit Kalessa. Just let me... And he digs his lockpicks out of his pockets.
Okay, since there was an arcane lock cast on this door, it's going to be a DC 25 check to try and pick the lock. And it's not going to be quick. It's going to take you a little bit.
I'd rather lose our witness than Kalessa. I'm going to roll to try to pick the lock. 29.
Okay, that meets the DC. As you're doing that, you hear Esta, sounding pained, laugh again. "You know, you should have died back there." Kalessa shoots back. "Unfortunately for you, here I am. You should tell me what I want to hear. Whoever's paying you off, I'm willing to bet that they haven't just watched their whole family die. And they're not half the sadistic bitch that I'm feeling like right now. And even if you do rat them out, they'll at least kill you quickly. Last chance." Leo, you feel the lock click open under your lockpicking tools as you hear, and fire crackling and another hideous shriek that cuts off into a gurgle.
Oh, where's Lark with that fire extinguisher? I'm kicking the door in.
The chair and the woman in it are both on fire. There is this huge ocean of fire around her from this splattered grease spell. And Kalessa is standing there, her face lit by the flames, one hand up and the other one around her knife. And with that upraised hand, she goes, and the fire goes out instantly. Look at that, we need a reset. Leo, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, fuck, this is gruesome. I'm assuming this lady has been pretty thoroughly Anakin Skywalkered at this point.
Yes. And she appears to be unconscious.
Eleonora, get her out of here.
Eleonora walks up to Kalessa, both hands up and visible, and says,
Kalessa, let's just go sit down. It's been a long night.
Kalessa, still with her knife in her hand, just snaps back. Don't tell me to sit down! I'm not going anywhere.
The hell you're not! Leo spins Kimrel's blade around his finger and casts Calm Emotions. I need Kalessa to make me a DC 18 charisma saving throw.
Okay. That's a 13.
Once more, Eleonora, get her out of here.
Eleonora's gonna roll athletics to grapple Kalessa. Kalessa's gonna contest with acrobatics. 22 and an 11. Nope. Eleonora gets Kalessa in a grapple check, just wraps both arms around her, and tries to get her to sit down on the floor. What are you doing as this is happening?
So the thing is that I have 1 4th level and 1 5th level spell slot left, and that's it.
Correct. What are you doing with them?
Nothing yet. I am going to try to stabilize this bard using a medicine check.
Okay, you get a +5. Go ahead.
That's a natural 17, plus 5 is a 22. So that'll do it. She's stable at 0 hit points. Leo leans out the open door behind him and goes, "Okay, anybody else got heals? Because I am running dangerously low on magic and have a couple ideas that I need to use it for."
Phi rushes into the room. She's gonna use Lay on Hands. She's gonna be as petty as possible about it. She does exactly 1 point of healing. And Esta the Bard lurches back into consciousness with a
Cool, I'm using one of my 2 remaining spell slots to cast a Zone of Truth, again.
That doesn't do it.
Okay, great, and Zone of Truth is not a concentration spell, so I'm still holding that Calm Emotions up on Kalessa, assuming she's still within 15 feet of me.
Yeah, she and Eleonora are just sitting on the floor. They are still within 15 feet.
Leo crouches down and leans in toward where this bard, burnt to a crisp, I'm sure, is tied to the chair, and smiles brightly. "Hey, Esta, welcome back to the land of the living." "You're welcome for that, by the way. Remember when I told you that you weren't gonna like what came after me if you decided to spit in my face? Metaphorically, or literally, as it were? Let's try this again, shall we?"
So this was all the plan, was it? Was that why all of you were trying to beat down the door?
Whether all of this was the plan or not, you're still the one here who stands to lose the most. I have 3 questions. If you answer them, I'm willing to let you walk. Who sent you? Were you working with anyone, and if so, who? And what were you sent to do?
I was sent to kill Ambassador Petrus and plant some explosive charges. Didn't even have to detonate them myself. Hardly a 2-person job, especially not for someone with my skill set. And you know who sent me.
I do. Say it.
Fine. Alasha Dakarin. Are you fucking happy? And then the calm emotion spell that you dropped fades because it only lasted a minute, and I am going to roll to hit with disadvantage for Kalessa. Even with disadvantage, that is a 16. That's gonna do it. Esta gets through saying that Alasha Dakarin hired her, and then from behind you, you hear a, "Let me go!" And then a chromatic orb goes whizzing past your ear. At 3rd level, with poison damage, which Esta, being Astrarian, is vulnerable to, that's going to be 10d8 damage. Let me roll that real quick. So that's 73 poison damage. That's gonna do it.
Do what?
Leo, as you are standing here after you feel that chromatic orb whiz past your ear, you watch it sink into the Bard Esta's chest. The chair she's on tilts back a little bit from the force of it, and then the chair tips back onto all 4 feet, and she slumps forward dead.
God damn it! I use my last spell slot to cast Revivify.
You don't have a diamond for Revivify anymore, bud.
'Cause I used it trying to bring the ambassador back. Yep, no I don't. Fuck.
From behind you, Eleonora goes, "What the fuck?" And you hear Kalessa just make this wounded animal noise.
Leo whips around and glares at her. "Hey, Kalessa, what you just did right there, the torture and the murder, those were war crimes. And more than that, you just destroyed all credibility of any of the evidence we just got.
Kalessa looks up at you from where Eleonora is still holding onto her on the ground. She looks wrecked. From all the crying she did after she found her dad, she's got black streaks of mascara just going down her cheeks. And she has soot all over her from both the explosion of the embassy and, as you so eloquently put it, the war crime she just committed. She killed my parents, Leo.
And Kimrel only knows how many of us you just killed. Leo will regret his reactions to the situation later, but for now, he just storms past her and Eleonora where they're on the ground and does not look at either of them. Alright, crisis management. We need to make this body disappear.
The rest of your party, with the obvious exceptions of Phi, Eleonora, and Kalessa, and Lark, who ran to get assistance, are standing in the main room of this garage in stunned silence. There is a long pause, and then the door to the main floor of the garage gets kicked in, and Tony with a Y comes in with a fire extinguisher and sprays down your entire party.
Thank you, Tony, for that intervention that's about 5 minutes too late. Unfortunately, it does nothing about the dead body in your back room.
He was very obviously ready to go to bed for the night. He's wearing pajamas under a bathrobe, and he's got an eye mask pushed up over his hair. And he says, "There's a what?"
You know, I would say don't worry about it, but on the off chance that the rest of us can't figure out how to make a dead body disappear, I feel like you might have some connections. So, anybody, options?
Mia reaches up, 2 fingers on each hand, and delicately swipes fire extinguisher foam off of one eye and then the other, and then flicks it off onto the floor. I might be able to do a little something. I'll need privacy, though.
Fine. Let's all just head back to Aunt Nora's.
With the exception of Mia, who cracks their knuckles and then steps into the back room, ushering Eleonora, Kalessa, and Phi out as they go in. You all head back to your Aunt Nora's house.
Phi, your aunt's house is in chaos when you get back. Your Uncle Boreas has apparently made it back here since the explosion at the embassy and is just pacing the length of the foyer, big streaks of soot and ash smeared across his face. He whirls around on his heels, sees all of you coming in through the front door, and then turns around up the stairs and yells, "Nora!" Your aunt and your Uncle Aaron, both wearing pajamas and looking severely stressed out, appear at the top of the stairs. Nora gets her eyes on all of you and lets out a sob and just runs down the stairs. She pulls Adra into her arms first and then reaches over and grabs Lark in a big hug. Oh, thank Kimrel. Okay, we'll figure this out. Lark is like half a second into this hug before they just burst into tears, sobbing into their mother's shoulder. While she is petting Lark's hair down and trying to soothe them, she looks over their shoulder and regards the rest of you. Nobody here's in good shape. You're all dirty, covered in varying degrees of soot and ash. Leo's robes are all torn up from your chase through the alleyways. The captain is nursing a pretty nasty-looking burn up one of his forearms. And Kalessa stands in the doorway uncertainly, shaking like a leaf. You see Eleonora disappear off to the side into the sitting room for a second, and then come back with a big knitted blanket that she wraps around Kalessa's shoulders and ushers her inside. Alright, come on, we've got to get you warmed up, you're gonna get sick. Nora kind of steps to the side and nods up the stairs. The fireplace in my study's lit, take her up there. And then Phi, she finally makes eye contact with you. What happened? We heard explosions, and Boreas came back saying something about the embassy, and, well, he hasn't really been coherent since he got back. Across the foyer where he is still pacing, your Uncle Boreas lets out a manic giggle.
Can I sit down for a second first?
Yeah, of course, sitting room, come on. You too, Boreas. Nora grabs him by the back of his frock coat as she marches all of you off into the sitting room, and he lets out another one of those high-pitched giggles. Oh, I don't know what's more fucked, the fact that Morlin tried to be me, or the fact that Morlin tried to kill me.
Oh god, oh fuck. Phi reaches up to fist both hands in her hair as Nora ushers all of them into the sitting room and she sits down on one of the couches.
Across the coffee table from you, Zed settles down on another sofa with a weary sigh, and Leo just kind of crawls into his lap and buries his face in his shoulder for a second. Florian Javaris also came back to the house with you. You see him shrugging this thin black pashmina shawl off and wrapping it around Erave's shoulders as he leads her over to the broadcasting device and turns it on. Sabine and the captain are huddled in one corner. You see Sabine kind of flicking her wrist to cast a Cure Wounds and then press her hand very gently over this big burn that the captain has up the side of his arm. Ravain looks freaked. You see his nails start to elongate a little bit and a couple little mushroom caps pop up along his hairline. And Verity is just actively sobbing in the doorway. Talindra, looking numb, comes up behind both of them and gets an arm around both their shoulders, pulls them down onto the nearest love seat with her, and just kind of tugs them both into her lap and starts petting their hair down. Lark and Adra both kind of shrink back from the doorway and head off down the hall. You get the feeling that they're headed to Adra's lab to kind of decompress by themselves. Fen draws up behind this couch that you're sitting on, Phi, and kind of just rubs at your shoulders for a second. And then when you look down, you're not quite sure when she got there. But Lorelei Shakrana is curled up on the rug with her head leaning against your knee, one hand just kind of gripping at your skirts. And for a moment, all that you do is just sit there and look at each other as the distant strains of emergency news reports of an explosion at the Astrarian Embassy float out from this broadcasting device across an otherwise silent sitting room.
Phi takes a really deep breath and then smooths down her skirts, reaches out to squeeze Lorelei's shoulder, and then nods and says, "Well, Ambassador and Lady Petrus are dead, as are all of the people that were still in the embassy when the explosion went off."
You watch your Aunt Nora's fists go tight in the fabric of her pants. And what, you're saying that this was Morlin?
The person that killed the ambassador and set the explosive charges said that Alasha sent them, and I am making the assumption that she did that at Father's behest, because he came to the garage, magically impersonating Uncle Boreas, and separated me from the group right before everything started to go bad.
Erave, from where she's standing with Florian over next to this broadcasting device, looks up, eyes going wide. So the garage is compromised, then we've gotta warn the Tonys. Fuck. Florian, come on. The two of them sweep out of the sitting room, and you hear the front door open and close behind them as they leave. Your Aunt Nora is still just staring down at the rug, fists going even more white-knuckled in her lap. But that's... I don't understand. Eamon was his best friend. Why would he... Leo kind of extricates himself from this big hug that Zed has had him wrapped up in, and looks around at all of you. If you'll all just give me a moment. And he stands up, dusts off the front of his robes, and leaves. You see Zed kind of reach out for him from the couch and stand up. Boss, come on. But Leo's gone, and Zed follows him out not much later.
When you think about it, it was a win-win situation for them either way.
A lot of Father's political enemies died. If I hadn't gotten back in time to warn everyone, several members of our party would have died. And even though I did, now they get to pin all of this on Leo. I assume that's why I had to turn up to the party late. Alasha set all this up, and she wouldn't agree to it if there was a possibility I would be there. I'm not sure how they figured out we were meeting at the garage, but that's burned. We can't go back there.
Your Aunt Nora does not look up from where her head is buried in her hands. Because he came here and asked me. And I thought... Your Uncle Boreas has settled down in an armchair on the far side of the room, kind of just rocking back and forth. Yeah, about that. We shared a womb, Nora, and he still managed to pull the wool over your eyes? Nora does not look at him. Well, to his credit, he knows how to fake your asthma attacks pretty well, and the last time you came to me looking that panicked and I questioned you, you yelled at me. I should have seen it. I could have stopped all of this before it began, but the damage is done. We should all try to get some rest. However this plays out, we won't help ourselves by sitting around and fussing over it. From the foyer, you hear the front door open again, and a couple seconds later, one Mia Sandis walks into the sitting room. There's a weird cognitive dissonance with how pristine they are in comparison to how disheveled and dirty the rest of your party is. There is not a single stain on their clothes. They don't have a scratch on them. They look incongruously perfect. Fen pushes himself back from where he's been rubbing at your shoulders and takes 3 big strides across the room and pulls them into his arms. Mia, midway through being crushed by this hug, kind of says muffled into the front of Fen's breastplate, "Alright, well, whoever that lady was working for, they ain't gonna trace her back to the garage, which means they ain't gonna trace her back to us. Sugar, can you let go of me? I can't breathe." Fen obliges and lets them go, kind of steps back for a second, and then leans in and down to kiss them on the forehead. Alright, well, I would say let's all just try to take a step back and retire for the night, but we don't really have anywhere to retire to.
Yeah, some of us are transing in the sitting room for the night. I'll go get blankets.
Fen reaches out and gets you by the wrist. We'll handle it. You go check on Kalessa. She's gonna want to talk to you more than any of the rest of us right now.
Yeah, you're right. And then Phi's gonna head up the stairs to the study.
You go upstairs. In the hallway, you pass your brother and Zed kind of around a corner having a very hushed conversation, but it seems like they don't want to be interrupted. The door to your Aunt Nora's study is open. The fireplace in there is roaring and crackling. And curled up in one of the armchairs, you see Kalessa still wrapped in the blanket that Eleonora put around her shoulders. Eleonora is knelt down on the floor in front of her, but as she sees you come in, she stands up, leans down to kiss Kalessa on top of the head, and goes, "Okay, I'll be right back. I'll be right back." And then comes out into the hallway. Eleonora Ashthorne is much smaller in stature than you, Phi, but she projects a stability and a sense of steadiness that is larger than life as she kind of pulls you away from the doorframe. She looks up at you, these big, luminous, yellow goblinoid eyes kind of squinting. "Alright, she won't tell me she's cold, but she's shaking like a leaf. I'm gonna go downstairs and get her some tea or some hot chocolate or something. Can you just watch her till I get back?"
Yeah, absolutely. I've got her.
Eleonora reaches up, grabs you by the bicep, and shakes you a little bit. "Alright, cool. And then she turns around and sweeps down the stairs. What do you do?
I'm gonna go in the study and sit down next to Kalessa.
Kalessa is wrapped up in this blanket that Eleonora put around her shoulders as soon as you walked back in. And she does not look up to acknowledge you. She is just staring into the crackling flames of the fireplace.
Phi just sits down. I think she's gonna turn one hand palm up in her lap, just in case.
There is a long pause, but then Kalessa reaches out and closes her hand over your open palm and squeezes really hard. Do you want me to say I'm sorry? Leo does.
Do you want the honest answer to that, or do you want the answer that's gonna make you feel better?
Sitting around waiting for the answers that would make me feel better killed my family, Phi. Please, be honest.
I think that what you did came from a place of a lot of pain, and I understand that. I also think that it was poorly thought out, and it was wrong, and you shouldn't have done it. But I know better than to expect an apology for it.
She keeps staring into the fireplace. As an Astrarian, Kalessa has kind of reflective, cat-like eyes with these slit pupils, and you can see the flames just kind of reflecting off of them. She squeezes your hand so tight that your bones ache. Do you remember what you promised me? After Soren died?
I promised you that all these motherfuckers were going to burn.
Every single one of them, you said.
Kalessa, if you're looking for me to tell you that you made the right call by torturing and murdering a woman that was tied to a chair, I'm not going to do that.
I don't give a shit if I made the right call. Phi, roll me an Arcana check with advantage because you were rolling on Kalessa.
15.
Meets it, beats it. You have known Kalessa Petrus for most of your life. Her magic is very familiar to you. It is wizard's magic, academic. She trained at the Order of Iluna to potentially become a wizard, but in her adult life you saw her transition that knowledge into becoming an arcane trickster rogue. You have a pretty innate sense when it comes to magic. You know its source, you know its power. As you sit here with Kalessa, as she is not making eye contact with you, as she is staring into the crackling flames of your Aunt Nora's fireplace, you feel something primal and raw and wrathful coming off of her. Her gaze is just fixed on the white-hot center of this fire in the hearth. And the longer she looks at it, the more you see the flame start to warp and change. If you watch it for a few more minutes, you can start to see things reaching out of the flames that look almost like outstretched hands, reaching out towards Kalessa's free hand, which you watch her slowly start to extend. They're all gonna burn. Every single one of them. Kalessa has been leveling a bit behind the rest of our party, so she's gonna take 2 levels right now. She has been a straight-leveled arcane trickster rogue throughout this whole campaign. She is now also a Circle of Wildfire druid. Phi, before you could do anything to react to this, in quick succession, Eleonora comes back with a steaming mug of tea and an extra blanket draped over one arm, kind of comes in, gives her the tea, and tries to get her to her feet. And in the doorway behind her, you see Leo, eyes bloodshot, like he has been crying and having an absolute meltdown, kind of perching in the doorway, looking at you and raising an eyebrow.
Phi purses her lips into a very thin line, nods at him, and then brushes off her skirts and stands up. Yeah, I think we should all go to bed.
Eleonora isn't paying you much mind. She's in the process of draping this extra blanket over Kalessa's shoulders and ushering her out of the room. They disappear down the hallway, and you are left with Leo still with one hip leaning against the doorway, arms crossed over his chest.
This is fucked. This is all so fucked.
Leo screws his eyes shut and grits his teeth. Yeah, you're telling me. You, want to go for a walk in the garden real quick?
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
He walks you down the stairs and outside to the back garden to the freshly turned plot of earth where you know a lot of his plants from his new hobby are growing. He's not really making eye contact with you. He just kind of kneels down and starts fussing with the dirt around a lot of these little sprouts. So, Alasha made the purpose of all of this pretty clear. They need a bigger villain to rally against, and that's me. That's really the only logical thing we can infer. It's a frame job. I'm beginning to wonder if I should turn myself in.
I don't think that's a good idea. They don't have any proof because you didn't do it. And not to be too terribly grim, but most of the people that were pointing the finger at you at the party are dead now.
Which is potentially an even worse indictment upon me, Phi, if I can pull this off of everybody else.
We talked about this.
Leo yanks a weed up out of the dirt and kind of throws it over his shoulder. Yeah, that's what Zed said too.
And you don't think maybe that should be an indicator?
I think that I know who Father and Alasha are trying to take down with all of this.
So what? You think you should just walk into whatever their plan is?
I think they're not expecting me to.
I think that's bullshit. One way or another, they expect you to go down for this. And, yeah, all the rest of us can mount a rescue mission. That's if you don't get a knife in the back before we get there. You said we were facing things together. I don't agree to this.
Leo purses his lips and kind of leans down to fuss over this very tiny little green sprout that is just barely coming up through the soil. You know, Auntie Nora and Talindra and Rafael, all three of them told me that this was a wasted effort, but it's growing. You know what they call this? The jewel orchid. It's finicky, and it's hard to work with, and it only blooms once a year, but if you can catch it, it's got the prettiest flower you could ever imagine. You don't agree to this. That's fine, but whatever happens next, I just want you to know that I planted it for you. I'm gonna go find Zed. He's a goddamn mess. Hopefully, we'll have the space to figure all of this out in the morning.
Yeah, hopefully. Phi's gonna turn around and go back inside before she starts crying.
You go back inside and get caught almost immediately in the kitchen by Sabine, who looks like she was headed out to the back garden to try to find you. She kind of pulls you into this big hug and just squeezes you super tight. There's not much else we can do, love. Let's just go to bed.
Yeah, let's... Yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm.
She takes you upstairs to your shared room with her and the captain. The captain is splayed out across the bed with a big swath of bandages across one of his arms, milking it for all it's worth. Ugh, I've given up so much for the cause. Who's gonna come hold me and tell me I did a good job?
Phi just lets out a noise, just... And then she's just gonna, drop onto the bed and curl up next to him.
Not long after you do that, Sabine kind of edges her way onto the other side of the bed and slings an arm around both of you. And without much further fanfare, the three of you fall into your trance. Phi, you are pretty sure that you're dreaming. You regain lucidity on your hands and knees on top of a very familiar, by this point, rolling, stormy ocean. If you stop long enough to consider your surroundings, you can see that there is a distant flashing light off to one side.
Phi clenches her fists on top of the water, nods to herself, and then dives in.
You go under this water. It is bitterly, breathtakingly cold. And then emerge, coughing up salt water on a beach of black sand. And directly above you, crouching down on this beach, you see a looming, storm-cloaked figure with bright electric blue eyes and a lightning bolt smile, leaning down over you. Well, here we are again.
Phi is just gonna lay down on this black sand beach and look up at Kiva and say, "In case you haven't noticed, I've had a rough night. So if you have something to say, just say it."
Kiva looms over you where you are laying flat on your back on this beach, and that lightning bolt smile widens by a few more inches. Well, it's not so much that I have something to say, as it is that I have something to show. And then, Phi, you are strapped in, you are along for the ride. There is this whooshing sound in your ears, and you are yanked forward off of your prone position on this beach into a sequence of visions that can only be called terrible and confusing. In quick succession, you see two children playing on this beach. You're reticent to call them infernal elves because they look different. Their horns are bigger and more jagged, and their canine teeth are larger. But other than that, they look basically Astrarian as they play in the surf and skip rocks out along the water. And then your vision sort of blurs, and you are now looking at this older... Again, you're hesitant to call him Astrarian man because of how big his canine teeth are and how jagged his horns are, staring out over a gray, storm-tossed sea. And then your vision blurs again, and you are watching a person that you absolutely recognize as your father, stepping out of a rowboat onto this black sand beach. And through all of this, as if timing it, you are seeing the slow, rhythmic flash of a lighthouse turning around and around and around. You are rooted in place on this beach, but Kiva, as all of these visions flash in front of you, is taking steps closer and closer and closer to you until you feel those, by now familiar, cold, pale hands brace themselves on either side of your face. You are so close to the truth. But what you have to realize now is that that truth comes with a cost. Are you willing to pay it?
Phi, even in the dream, feeling the weird crustiness of soot and ash on her skin, wraps her arms around herself and says, "No. Not if it's any of them."
And Phi, you wake up in a cold sweat.
Leo, we cut down the hall to you, where you are trancing in bed. Zed has one arm slung over you, and his face buried in her hair, sound asleep, snoring. And you start to dream. You are on a calm, flat, black sea. You are in the middle of a dense fog. From behind you, you can see a light cutting through it, rotating. And in front of you stands Kimrel, the Lord of Bones.
Leo attempts to right himself on this flat surface of water. What?
Kimrel tilts his head to the side and says,
"You need to be prepared for what comes next."
No, I am tired of watching anybody else suffer over this. I am tired of watching Kalessa suffer over it. What do I need to do to fix it?
Kimrel leans a little closer, his great horned head bobbing on his neck like a snake. The purple silver lights where his eyes should be flare. And he almost looks like he's smiling as he says,
"Have faith."
and then your perspective shifts. You're not on top of an ocean, you are beneath it, standing just below the surface. And this fog drifts up out of it and coalesces into thousands and thousands of ghosts. And you know in your heart that they are all looking at you. And above you, as this light turns and turns, you see a huge, gaping chasm.
Okay, so I'm under the water?
Mm-hmm.
Leo's going to follow that advice. He's gonna have faith. He opens his mouth and takes a big breath in.
You wake up, choking on seawater, to the sounds of someone beating down your door.
What the hell?
Zed, next to you in bed, is sitting up, rubbing at his eyes blearily, going, "What is it?"
Leo's gonna vault out of bed and frantically pull on a bathrobe.
You have just enough time to do that, and then the door bursts open, and a bunch of Volduran city guard flood your bedroom.
Shit. Yeah, we knew this was coming. I put my hands up.
One of these guards comes over and cannot reach your hands because they are above your head, but says, "Leoril Valcynes, you are under arrest by orders of the Emperor." Down the hall, you can hear similar noises coming from the direction of Phi and the captain and Sabine's room. You hear the captain yelling as Phi goes, "It's fine, it's fine!"
Leo makes eye contact with Zed and slowly puts his hands down to where these guards can get at them. Don't.
Zed looks like he's considering it. Roll a persuasion check.
22.
You watch Zed grit his teeth, but he does not move. You get handcuffed and dragged out to the hallway. You see Phi kneeling with her face pressed against the wall, hands cuffed behind her back. And you see your Aunt Nora in her pajamas at the end of the hallway, yelling, "If I've told you idiots once, I've told you 100 times. We all have diplomatic immunity." And then one of the Volduran city guards goes, "Begging you pardon, ma'am. Diplomatic immunity doesn't cover one count of murder, much less 26.
We didn't do this, and that is the only thing you're hearing out of any of us until we are given access to some legal representation."
The city guard that has you cuffed snorts and goes, "Yeah, you're gonna be keeping your mouth shut for a while then, kid."
Leo just glares and then turns around to everybody else gathered in the hallway. "Okay, everybody just stay calm. We're gonna sort this out."
At this point, your entire party has come out into this hallway. You see Talindra trying to keep Lorelei back in the room that they've been staying in, and Lorelei trying to peek out around her. You see Ravain with a white-knuckled grip around Verity's hand. And you see Kalessa, blanket around her shoulders, arms wrapped around herself, standing in the doorway of the room that Eleonora has been staying in. And Eleonora has one arm locked around her arm and the other one locked around the doorframe. Zed, at this point, has gotten out of bed to stand in the doorway. He locks eyes with you, raises an eyebrow like, "Okay, now can I fuck these people up?"
Leo meets his eyes and shakes his head almost imperceptibly. "It's gonna be fine. Truth wins out, right?" And then he looks back at all of the guards that are swarming this hallway. "Gentlemen, if you don't mind, my family has been through enough. Should we perhaps take this somewhere more private?"
You see that Phi is making a very similar kind of eye contact with Sabine and the captain that you are with Zed. The captain has a hand on his cutlass, and Sabine is buckling on one of her bell cuffs. And the guard that appears to be in charge of all the others dusts his hands off and says, "Couldn't have said it better myself. Boys, take 'em." And you and your sister get dragged out of this house.
So, Phi, you've been to jail before. You end up back at the same precinct that you and the captain were held at after you held the news crew at Sword Point.
God.
In a cell with quite a bit more security than the last one you inhabited. You're in your pajamas, your brother's in a bathrobe, you're both barefoot, and Leo is just pacing from the moment this cell door locks behind you.
Would you sit down? I can't hear myself think over the sound of your impending anxiety attack.
No, I will not sit down. Number 1, because pacing helps me think, and number 2, because I am full commando under this bathrobe, and I don't trust the sanitation standards in this place.
Ew.
Leo makes it to the other end of the cell and turns on his heel again. Okay, so this is fucked. Any physical evidence that might have existed got destroyed in the embassy explosion, so now all the courts have to go on is the stories of the people that survived. You know, the people that watched Maximus Greyriver accuse me of murder a couple minutes before dying himself.
I'll admit that when you say it like that, it doesn't sound good.
Leo's eye twitches a little bit. Yeah, no, it doesn't sound great, Phi. The worst case scenario here is that we go down for a crime we didn't commit, the war goes ahead, and there's no one to stop Father from doing whatever heinous shit he has planned next. So yeah, I would say that our backs are up against the wall just a little bit.
Yes, and I'm sure the most productive use of our time is talking to me like I'm stupid, Leo.
Forgoing his earlier concerns about hygiene, Leo sits down on one of the metal bunks in this room, picks up a pillow, and just screams into it for a long time. But eventually he looks back up at you. Alright, well, I guess all we can do at this point is wait.
I guess so. Phi sits down on the other bunk, looking as dignified as she can, in her flowery nightgown with her hair up. Right.
You two are sweating it out for a couple hours before anything happens. After a long while, you hear a door down at the end of the cell block open, and your Uncle Boreas, of all people, walks up with a big leather duffel bag slung over his shoulder. One of the city guards unlocks your cell door, and he sort of just shoves the bag around it at the two of you. Alright, make yourselves decent, we need to talk.
Phi grabs the bag and opens it.
Inside is a change of clothes for both you and Leo. He's got a nice set of kind of just everyday clothes folded up on one side of this bag, and then you have various corsetry and under things and a dress folded up on the other. And across the top of this bag is a neatly folded Gift of the Stormbringer.
Oh yeah, Phi's grabbing the cape and just hugging it to her chest for a second. And then she looks up at her Uncle Boreas, kind of confused, and goes, "Did you just come by to give us a change of clothes?"
Your uncle heaves a long-suffering sigh. No, I'm your lawyer, which you could have inferred if you had ever bothered at any point, Phirora, to ask me what I do for a living.
I assumed you just lived off of the royal stipend and collected books.
I did that for several decades, but then I got bored and went to law school, which is playing out in your favor, so maybe don't ask too many questions about it.
That's fair. And Phi's gonna get dressed.
Yeah, you both gather your effects and get dressed. From behind you, you hear Leo go, no chance you see a bracer in that bag anywhere.
I'm gonna look for Leo's bracer.
Yeah, there's no bracer in there.
I don't see it anywhere, no.
Leo finishes buttoning up his shirt and you watch his eye twitch again. Great! After the two of you get ready, you are ushered out of this cell and a little further down the hall to a very bare-bones, stark conference room with a long metal table and several chairs arranged around it. Your Uncle Boreas sits down at the head of the table and just fully puts his head in his hands.
Well, that seems like a bad sign.
He does not look up. Yes, astute assumption, Phirora. The only conclusion I can come to is that there's no evidence. Not even circumstantial evidence. There's just no evidence because the embassy burned to the ground.
Well, technically it exploded.
Just like all of my blood vessels are about to. Look, all of this is pageantry. A good chunk of the Senate died last night, and the Volduran political machine is out for blood because of that. We cannot win this. Your arraignment's this afternoon, and as your legal counsel, my official advice is for the two of you to say nothing until then. But as your uncle, and someone who cares about the two of you very much, my advice is that if either of you have something up your sleeve, now is the time to pull it out. Your uncle stands up from this table and nods at both of you. Well, I usually say this with a great deal more contempt, but I'll see you two in court. He opens the door to this conference room, and there are several Volduran city guards outside ready to escort you back to your cell. And you watch your uncle's face go very stony and serious in an unsettlingly familiar expression. I meant what I said, you two. Figure something out.
Okay, once they're back in their cell, Phi turns to Leo and goes, "So, any bright ideas?"
Leo starts pacing again, both hands fisted up in his hair. Okay, so let's take a comprehensive inventory of everything we've got right now. First off, a political narrative that is stacked so artfully against us. Have I mentioned that Father and Alasha are assholes? We have no credible evidence to help us out, and I'm not overly familiar with how the Valduran legal system works, but even assuming that we can call our own witnesses, bringing Kalessa in to talk about what she did would just put her on the chopping block instead of us, which I think we can both agree isn't acceptable.
No, obviously not.
Leo turns on his heel at the other end of the cell, keeps pacing. He's getting, more and more deranged by the second. We are apparently so far up Schitt's Creek that our literal, actual legal counsel is giving us veiled advice to run for the hills. I don't have my holy symbol, you don't have your wand, you don't have your shield. What do we have?
I have a lucky cape and +5 to charisma.
Leo sits down on the bunk and screams into the pillow again. After a second, he throws this pillow against the wall and just scrubs both hands down his face. Fuck. We don't even have a prayer at making it out of this.
No, it doesn't seem like we do.
There's a long moment of silence in this cell as you and your brother are washed over by the waves of despair. And then you watch Leo's posture shift. His hunched shoulders roll back, and he sits up a little straighter on this bunk, hands dropping from in front of his face. And there's just the slightest glimmer in his eye that you by now are familiar with, because you know it means that he has a plan. A prayer. We don't have anything else, but we might have a prayer.
Oh, good, you've gone insane.
I'm not insane, I'm a priest. And what I'm thinking of is a long shot, but it's the best one we've got. He reaches out his hand to you as you walk in front of him. Trust me?
Yeah, always. And Phi grabs his hand.
A few more hours pass, and then several of these guards that you've seen in and out of the cell block today come back to your cell, put you and Leo back in handcuffs, and load you into the back of a truck for a relatively short trip to the nearest Valduran courthouse. You walk into this courtroom, and the seats are packed. You spot several members of the Senate that look familiar. Notably, Tomas Highvale is sitting there looking extremely worried. But what commands more of your focus is the entirety of your party lined up along two of these big long benches in the gallery. Your Aunt Nora and Uncle Aaron, both of your cousins, and all of your friends are just crowded onto these seats, watching you with similar horror-struck expressions. You are led with your brother up to a small desk at the front of this courtroom where you see your Uncle Boreas waiting for you. There's another identical desk on the other side of this big aisle down the center of the room where a little gnomish lady with her dark hair pulled back in a very severe bun is arranging a portfolio of papers in front of her. After another pause, this very old dwarvish lady in long black robes comes out of a back room and situates herself behind a big lectern in front of both of these desks. All right, well, we all know why we're here. Phi, you were the one standing closest to your Uncle Boreas, and he leans over and up a bit into your ear. Okay, remember when I told you that if you had anything up your sleeve to use it?
Vividly, yes.
Phi's gonna try and catch Sabine in the captain's eyes.
The two of them are sitting at the end of one of these two big long benches that your party has wholly occupied. Sabine is just staring at you wide-eyed, and you notice that the captain has one of her hands wrapped up in both of his, just squeezing as hard as he can. Not too much further down the bench, you see Fen, who looks nauseous, sitting next to Mia, who looks weirdly calm given the situation and is kind of just lounging against the back of this bench, their feet kicked up on the bench in front of them, with one arm loosely draped around his shoulders.
I don't find Mia being calm that weird. I already know they don't like me.
This gnomish lady at the desk across the aisle from you gets up and starts reviewing the evidence of your whole situation. You would assume she's some kind of prosecutor. And next to you, under his breath, you hear Leo start to mutter in Astrarian priest's tongue. He is going down through what sounds like every prayer he knows. And he's gonna do something new and fun that he got when he hit level 10 Death Cleric. It is called Channel Divinity Divine Intervention. So, what that does, and I quote, as an action, you can request your deity's aid and roll a percentile dice. If the number rolled is equal to or less than your cleric level, your deity intervenes. So I am going to roll a d100. And if I hit 10 or less, Kimrel's going to do something. $41.
Hey, buddy, I know this isn't in the rules, but can I try something cool?
What would you like to try?
I would like to give Leo one of my rerolls.
From, like, the Gift of the Stormbringer? Like your 3 rerolls from that?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Roll me a religion check.
Natural 20! 27! What do I get with a 27, Barry?
With a 27...
With a 27, Kiva knocks down the wall of the courthouse.
No, hold on, I was working my way up to something. With a 27... Phi, you have always had this innate understanding of magic. It comes with that sort of arcane talent being in your blood and an inextricable part of you. Since you have taken those couple of paladin levels and become familiar with what that magic feels like, as you stand next to your brother, going through all of these prayers under his breath, you can feel the magic beneath his skin surging and pulsing. And you are able to understand that his magic and whatever your paladin magic is are made of the exact same thing. You can give him not 1, not 2, but all 3 of your rerolls off of the cape for today.
Fuck yeah. Okay. Phi grabs the edge of her cape and wraps it around her hand, and then grabs Leo's hand.
He squeezes your hand back super tight and keeps whispering under his breath. I'm gonna re-roll this Channel Divinity roll 3 times. $96. No. 19. No. Okay, come on. I don't know how else we're gonna fucking get out of this. $8. Leo's cleric level is 10. He made it.
Leo. All at once, the noise of the courtroom drops. away. And it is replaced by the sound of waves crashing against the beach. You feel your sister's hand tense around yours, and she says, "Oh, what the hell?"
I'm looking around. I'll roll a check if you want.
No need. You open your eyes, and you are at the top of a black stone lighthouse. As you look around, this turning light at the top of this tower spins so it is casting Phi in sharp relief next to you. She is looking around wide-eyed as this light throws her shadow long and dark into the air around this lighthouse. You look down and you see a black sand beach, and past this beach, crashing up against it, you see an ocean. To the left, in front of where Phi is standing, it is storm-tossed and wild. And to the right, in front of where you are standing, it is completely calm and glassy, split along some invisible boundary.
Okay. Well, better than a court case we can't win, I guess. Where are we? This looks familiar.
Phi is still looking around, bewildered and panicked. I know where we are, sort of. I don't recognize... And as she's saying that, something comes out of the darkness at you. You see two long necks, skulls like arrowheads, and going down from these necks, you see a mess of bones and darkness and scales and wings. It is hard to look at whatever this is. It is this horrible patchwork of oil slick like void darkness and blinding light and what seems like a jittering skeleton trying to move with no tissue holding it together. Whatever has come together here, you look at it and you feel wrong. Whatever this is should not exist the way that it is. You see, as these long necks bob and these skulls come closer to you, again, hard to look at. You can't discern detail because looking at whatever this is physically hurts. But 4 pinpricks of light come out of the fog in pairs. One silvery purple and one crackling electric blue. And 2 voices in unison say,
Leoril. Phirora.
So Leo's first impulse is to shriek, but he reins that in.
Phi, having less self-control than you do, lets out a yelp.
Leo squeezes a little tighter at where he's still holding her hand and looks out at this horrific eldritch being. Okay. Kimmerl in the flesh, I'm guessing.
These 2 voices in unison laugh.
Sort of. Not really. It's a long story.
And your vision goes blinding white. And that's where we're gonna end this week.
Holy Lovecraft, Batman!
Ooh, I love flexing the old horror muscles.
Well, I'm sure that what happens next is not gonna go bad at all.
No, why would it? Why would you think anything bad is going to come of this?
On Compelled Duel? Hey everybody, Barry here with the postscript, just clearing up a couple housekeeping things here at the end of the episode. As always, I'm going to go ahead and plug our social medias. You can find us on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Compelled Duel. We have a lot of other cool stuff, like an official Spotify profile, an official website. You could find all of that linked on our various social media profiles. We also host a Q&A live stream every week on our YouTube channel, so if you want to head on over to YouTube and search Compelled Duel and subscribe to us over there, we'd love to see you come hang out for that. It's a lot of fun. If you like what you're hearing so far on the podcast and are interested in supporting us, we ask that you consider heading over to patreon.com/compelledduel, where starting at just $2 a month, you get access to all kinds of cool patron perks, including but not limited to early access to episodes, access to bonus content and exclusive Spotify playlists, and even handwritten letters from your favorite character every month. If you'd like to support us in ways other than pledging to the Patreon, we ask that if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that you leave us a rating and a review, since that helps us get promoted to a wider audience. And as always, word-of-mouth advertising is the most powerful tool we have at our disposal, so if you like the podcast, we just ask that you tell a friend about it, and if they like it, ask them to tell a friend as well. And in other news, we did just open our official merch store, so if you're interested in getting any kind of cool Compelled Duel merchandise, you can head on over to compelledduel.myshopify.com. We have lots of cool stuff, t-shirts, stickers, notebooks, buttons, pretty much anything you can imagine. Our next episode will be coming out on Friday, February 18th, 2022, and if you are a member of our Patreon, you will get early access to that on Thursday, February 17th. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.